This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
The More Money Show with Steve Moore on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
We are back, folks. This is the More Money Show. I'm economist Steve Moore. I hope you're having a wonderful early spring Saturday afternoon. I hope it is nice wherever you are. We have stations and affiliates throughout the country, all the way from California down to Georgia, up to Maine. And so thank you so much for sharing some of your time with me and my guests to learn more about how the economy functions and finance and how you can make more money. Okay. So as promised, my next guest is, Rob Arnott, who has become a good friend. He's I think I first met Rob Arnott when we were helping Rand Paul, the senator who ran for president, in his campaign back in, I think that was 2016. And we have been, working together, now and then, throughout the last 10 years or so. And so, Rob, by the way, he is the chairman and founder of Research Affiliates, and he is one of the financial geniuses out there. So, Rob, thanks so much for joining.
I always enjoy these conversations.
Me too. So I've got a lot to talk to you about, Rob, and I'm going to start, if I may, Rob. I'm going to read 2 quotes from 2 of the world's greatest economists who ever lived, and I'd like your reaction, okay? So the first one is from Adam Smith. And as you know, I was just telling my listeners that this is the 250th anniversary of one of the greatest, probably the greatest book on the economics ever written, called, of course, The Wealth of Nations. And this is my favorite quote, Rob, from that book. It is not from the benevolence of the butcher, the brewer, or the baker that we expect our dinner, but from their regard to their own interest. That's quote number 1. Quote number 2 is from another economist who you knew and I knew and had great respect for, and one of the greatest ever, Milton Friedman, who said that the primary lesson of the 20th century is that free market capitalism works and socialism is a failure. And then he said, but what all the historians seem to have learned is that socialism is a success and free market capitalism is a failure. So I'd like your reaction, Rob, to both of those statements. Well,
these days, the economics profession has had a complete takeover by neo-Keynesians. That's people influenced heavily by Keynes, but taking Keynes to the next level. Keynes said during difficult times, it's fine to ramp up government spending to stimulate the macroeconomy. And then you repay that incremental debt from deficit spending during the good times. Neo-Keynesians say, well, yes to the former and no to the latter. Let's continue deficit spending during the good times.
They want to borrow during good times and bad times.
Right, which is incredibly stupid. The Neo-Keynesians have taken over the profession, and so it's a house of idiots. Adam Smith is the greatest economist in history. And yet you can get a PhD without ever cracking the spine on either of Adam Smith's great books.
Right. You probably can. I bet a lot of these PhD economists have never even read Adam Smith.
Correct. They'll criticize him without having even read him. One of my proudest possessions is I own, which means I'm custodian for future generations, of a copy of his first edition. Wealth of Nations.
Gosh. Wow. Well, next time I visit you, I want to see a copy of that, okay?
It is breathtaking. It was a 2-volume set with, you wouldn't think so because it's a short book, but they used big fonts back then and thick paper. Anyway, he's a genius. And yeah, we all operate out of self-interest. I deliver asset management to people, partly because I want to help them and partly because I get paid for it. And I make a living doing that. And I can exchange investment advice and the development of interesting investment products in exchange for bananas and avocados at the grocery store, thanks to capitalism.
It's a wonderful thing. So,
it's a fantastic thing. And socialism, meanwhile, has killed more people in the last 100 years than all other systems combined. Literally hundreds of millions.
Yeah, and I had a meeting with President Trump a few weeks ago, and he was in a very good meeting. We talked a lot about things, and one of the issues we brought up was Cuba, and I think Cuba is a perfect example, Rob, of what you're talking about. So Cuba, before Castro took over and brought communism and socialism to Cuba, it was a rising country. You had a rising middle class. You had incredibly well-educated and productive people. And then what happened under Castro is that he took over, they put in communism. There was virtually no economic progress for half a century. And so I told Donald Trump, look, if you can, I'm not talking about military action. If there's some way we can liberate Cuba from these tyrannical economic ways, there's no reason Cuba couldn't be the Hong Kong of the Western Hemisphere.
There's absolutely no reason. People left to their own devices are entrepreneurial, creative, and they will do their best to develop ideas, products that people want, that people need. How many times have you looked forward to going to deal with the government? And how many times have you looked forward to going to a favorite store? The former is socialism. The latter is private enterprise. It's a wonderful thing. So
no, you're exactly right. So I think I don't understand quite how we have so many. Well, just last question on this, because I do want to ask you about the financial markets and the situation with the economy. But why is it, do you think, Rob, that what we've been talking about is pretty self-evident? I don't think there's anything very controversial about what we're saying. I mean, we have the facts on our side. We have history on our side. And yet, if you look at the new polls that keep coming out, consistent for the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years, young people think socialism is a better economic organizing system than free markets.
Socialism really means transferring wealth from those who create to those who don't. And the right tends to hate redistribution. I view redistribution as an is. It happens in every society. In some, like Venezuela, it takes from the poor and gives to the well-connected. In others, it can take from the wealthy and the doers and the makers and the creators and give it to those who don't. A small element of that, I think, is both harmless and reasonably necessary. Taking care of the disadvantaged and the people who really need it is something that a humane society does. Take it too far, and it starts to do some serious damage. And that's where the entire Western world is. The U.S., a little over 40% of our entire economy is government. In Europe, it's roughly 50%, ranging as high as 60% in a couple of countries. How can you have 60% of the economy controlled, centrally controlled, and have it make decisions that are wiser than millions of consumers deciding what they want?
So, Rob, you have done very well. You are one of the top financial advisors in the country. So I'm going to say that you are rich. And so I'm going to just ask this question flat out. Why shouldn't we put 60, 70, 80% on rich people like Rob Arnott?
Well, the reason is simple, because if the tax is high enough, the rich will stop doing what they do, which is to create ideas and products that people want. And the billionaire tax in California is a prime example. It's
disaster.
Only 5%, and it's only a one-time tax, but it's already triggered at least a half a dozen centibillionaires, people worth over $100 billion, to leave the state rather than pay the tax. And it's incredible stupidity, because these people, in order to avoid giving away 5% of what they've earned, are depriving the state of decades of future income taxes.
Yeah, they're losing money because of this.
Why would you want to do that? Why would you want the Peter Thiels of the world and the founders of Google to leave the state and stop paying income tax to the state? It's just sheer insanity. And the rationale is, well, they should pay their fair share. Society deserves some of that money. Well, society already takes half of the money. So does it deserve more and more and more? At some point, people say no and they leave.
So, Rob, my favorite story about you among many is that when I first met you, we would have lunch in the most gorgeous place in the world, Laguna Beach, California, and there's no slice of heaven that's amazing like that. And I always enjoyed visiting you. And then a few years ago, you said, I've had it with California, and now when I visit you, you're in Miami, Florida. Yeah,
Miami Beach, and we live on the water on Biscayne Bay with beautiful sunset views over Miami. And it's also a little slice of heaven. So there are slices of heaven in various places. Here's the math that eludes Sacramento. If the top tax rate is 14%, which in effect it is, they think, why are people going to leave over 14%? Well, in Florida, I can keep 57% of my income. The federal tax officially is 37%, but when you add in Medicare and Medicaid and Obamacare tax, it pushes it up to 43. So I get to keep 57 cents on the dollar. In California, I take 14 less than that, which means 43 cents on the dollar. Going from keeping 43 cents to keeping 57 cents is a 33% raise.
Wow.
So
that's
a 14% tax means a 33% raise for leaving. Mondami wants the top rate in New York City to go to 17%.
It's 17%
idiotic. Tax. Get this. A 17% tax means you're telling New York billionaires you can give yourself a raise of 42% by leaving.
Wow.
42%.
That's amazing.
Are billionaires going to leave New York City to...
You mean if you leave for a state that does not have an income tax?
Correct.
Yeah,
and migration also happens internationally. You can double your income if you move to Puerto Rico, but there's a lot of rules and strings attached to that. People move for various reasons. The Rolling Stones abandoned London, moved to Paris. They put out their Exile on Main Street album because they were exiled. And Keith Richards famously said, well, it's basically that England is paying us to leave. The top tax rate then was 90% in England. And I believe it was 75% in France. Huge tax rate. If you go from keeping 10 cents on the dollar to 25 cents on the dollar, you've more than doubled your income. So a little difference in tax, 15%, in that case meant 150% raised by leaving. Just crazy that people don't get this arithmetic.
It is. And the evidence is crystal clear about this, that we seeing states like Florida. We're seeing states like obviously Texas, Tennessee, Nevada, New Hampshire. The states that don't have an income tax have been booming. And Mondami is talking about this big tax increase. California is talking about a wealth tax. What you're going to find, if I understand you correctly, is many of the billionaires will move out of California. They'll move out of New York. And by the way, in both of those states, Rob, I know this from reading a lot of your stuff, the top 1 or 2% pay half of the taxes. So if they leave, who's going to pay the taxes?
There's a politics of envy. People hate people who are massively successful. But unless
I don't.
I don't either. Unless you achieve massive success through corruption or crime, you achieve massive success through creating what people want. Jeff Bezos created Amazon. Bill Gates created Microsoft, and so forth and so on. These are creations that have massively changed the world for the better. And so what if they get billions and billions and billions for doing that? I think we should replace a politics of envy with a politics of gratitude. Some of us are like that. Hey, Rob,
we have to take Rob. Can I hold you over for one more segment, Rob? Because this is a fascinating conversation. I'm talking to Rob Arnott, who is one of the great financial geniuses of our time. Can you hold over one more segment, Rob?
Absolutely.
Okay, folks, this is the More Money Show. We'll be back with Rob Arnott in about 2 minutes. We are back, folks. This is the More Money Show. Thank you so much for joining this weekend. I'm on with Rob Arnott, who is my guest. Rob Arnott is one of the financial geniuses of our country. He is the founder of Research Affiliates. Rob and I have been talking for the last 15 minutes or so about what's going on with the economy. And Rob, everything that you said in the previous segment, I agreed with, except one thing I disagreed with you about. And that is you said that there's a lot. And that is when you said that people are envious. They don't like rich people. And I don't think that's true. I mean, I think most Americans, when they see a Sergey Brin or a Tiger Woods or a Warren Buffett or a, Jack Welch who built General Electric, I think we hold them out with great admiration. I think it's just the politicians, a small fraction of the left that regards these people as villains, not heroes.
I think that's probably true. I think there's probably a 20% cohort of the population who hates wealthy people, but it's certainly not 50%. The thing about politics and media is very simple. Politicians get votes and media gets eyeballs, or in our case,
they try to
by promoting fear and anger. Nothing captures an audience or garners votes more than making people afraid and making them angry. So
that's a great point.
Cato Institute came out with a book a decade ago called 10 Global Trends That Every Smart Person Should Know. And it's a fast read. It goes through trends that are happening in the world that don't get reported. Case in point, there is more forest land globally today than there was 50 years ago, and by a decent-sized margin, so much for deforestation. Life expectancy, we all know, has soared, and it's soared for reasons relating to capitalism. The biggest shocker to me was that in 1992, 42% of the world was living in squalid poverty, basically $1.50 a day to live on. And roll the clock forward to about 10 years ago, and when they wrote the book, and it had fallen from 42% to 7%. Now, for 7% of the world population, that is horrible. That's 500 billion people living squalid lives where they don't know if they're going to eat. But it's not 42%. And there is no reason that 7% can't go in our lifetimes down to 2 or 3%, and then our kids' lifetimes down to 0.
There you go. By the way, there's a book that I wrote with the great Julian Simon about 20 years ago called It's Getting Better All the Time, the 100 Greatest Trends. And we are now I'm updating that. I'm updating that now because it was 20 some years ago, but I've got literally 2 minutes left, and I left the most important question for last. Everybody's freaking about the markets. Rob, what is your strategy? Do we jump off the ledge? What's going on with these markets? What is your advice to people right now, given that we have $100 barrel oil right now?
It's very simple. Most of the market doesn't like looking past a current crisis. What is the situation going to be in 3 years, 5 years? Are the Straits of Hormuz still going to be closed? It's possible, but not very likely. Is energy going to be widely available and back down to historic levels?
Yes.
Yeah, probably. Yes. That's the likelihood.
Yep.
So plan your investments accordingly. In the months ahead, you want to be in the portfolio that will benefit from the highly likely mean reversion, the trend towards past norms. Now, what does that mean for stocks? In the United States, you have a segment of the market, large growth stocks, notably the Magnificent Seven, that are priced for perfection. the AI will change our world beyond recognition, but it's in the price.
Yeah. Okay. So, hey, Rob, we've got to go. It's been a fascinating conversation. We have a hard out. That was Rob Arnott from Research Affiliates, one of the smartest guys know about finances. Thanks for joining in this first hour of the More Money Show. And for many of our affiliates, we will be back for a second hour. This is the More Money Show.
Thanks for listening to More Money with Steve Moore. You can hear More Money with Steve Moore Saturday afternoons at 1. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?